You're the man who gave them the power to destroy themselves. And the world is not prepared. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3.
Truman needs to know what's next.
2.
What's next?
1.
Welcome to Read, Watch, Play, your dive into the stories we love and how they're adapted. This week, we are covering one of the biggest titles of 2023, Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer. My name is Randy Barrage. I'm here with Nick Hinkson, who would definitely be the guy at the Trinity test with suntan lotion on his face. Here we go. That killed me. The first time I saw it was this guy just lathering up.
Listen, Randy, zinc on my nose and oversized aviators. It works on the beach. It works at testing atomic bombs. It's a classic look that you just can't go wrong with.
Yeah, you do seem like a guy who needs some like SPF 60.
Minimum. I do SPF 60 before noon, and then I jump to 100 once 12:01 rolls around.
One thing I feel like we can't avoid talking about is Barbenheimer. And maybe that's like a good place to start here, of just the absolute phenomenon that had a chokehold on the world.
Summer. Yeah.
On the summer.
Did you double feature it?
We weren't able to. We were actually on vacation for most of July, and it was probably the most sad I've ever been on vacation when I realized, as a person who loves movies, that I'm missing out on this. And I mean, complete, no one should feel bad for me. We're on an amazing vacation. We were in Portugal. But I'm like, damn, I'm going to miss opening night of these movies. So I was devastated. What about you?
What better experience in Portugal than going to the movies for 6 hours?
I know. Yeah. Watching it probably in Portuguese.
I can't believe you weren't like, Alyssa, I love you, but I need to do this.
Yeah, I know. But we saw it when we got back. We weren't able to double feature it. We split it up. We saw actually Barbie first, and then we saw Oppenheimer. And it was kind of just getting the tickets we could get. Because I think you saw Barbie first over the summer. Is that right?
Yeah, I saw Barbie in theaters, but I didn't see Oppenheimer until it came out on streaming, and I bought it.
Okay. Yeah, what was your theater experience like for Barbie over the summer?
It was fun. I don't know. It's a fun movie. I thought it was hysterical. Everyone's laughing. I think especially comedies are more fun to watch with large groups of people. Yeah. Where everyone kind of feeds off each other's energy. You get that one person with the infectious laugh in the theater. It makes everything funnier. And it was a lot of fun. I went with Michaela and our friend John, and I don't know what else to say. It was really funny. I was cracking up the whole time. I haven't rewatched it. I haven't given it a rewatch, but definitely wish I could have double featured it.
Yeah, totally. As a frequent boomer at the cinema myself, I could not believe how packed it was. I mean, we go to this, we have like a Cinebistro here, which I think I've chatted about on the pod before. And it's busy. On a weekend, it's busy. But during the week, I mean, there's not many people there. I mean, and when we went for Barbie, we were struggling to find parking. The place was mobbed. They have a bar at Cinebistros. The bar was just slam packed. Everybody's dressed up. It was just fun to see. Especially when there's just so much content out there these days and things competing for our attention. It's fun when you see kind of everyone participating in like a sort of monoculture event. It's just not something we get anymore with like how much stuff is out there.
No, absolutely. I mean, I'm trying to think of the last thing I saw in theaters. The last thing I saw in theaters before Barbie was the new Haunted Mansion movie, and that was like a date night thing that we did at an iPic. So it was, like a whole experience type thing. But I can't think of the last movie I just went to see in a regular theater before Barbie.
Yeah.
Uncharted, maybe?
Yeah. Yeah, it was just an event. I mean, I know when there are people in my life who watch movies but do not go to the movie theater are telling me that they're planning to go. That's like the bellwether that like, wow, this is like a big deal. Yeah. That friends that don't go to the movie theater are like telling me they're planning to go see Oppenheimer or going to see Barbie. Like that's big. I mean, and it's so amazing. I mean, we talked about this in the bonus pod of how this just natural sort of phenomenon that was fan created of this double feature just came to be. It's really cool that it happened.
Yeah, you can't plan that. You cannot anticipate both movies being the two best movies of the year.
Yeah.
And coming out on the same day. You cannot plan that. No matter if Hollywood tried to plan that, one of them would have flopped for sure.
Yeah. Before we get too far into this, just a bit of housekeeping. Nick, where can people follow the show?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you are listening on either Spotify or Apple Podcasts, so make sure you follow us on one of those platforms and give us 5-star ratings. Only 5-star ratings, please. If you didn't like it, that's too bad. It's 5 stars anyway.
Yeah.
But more importantly, or just as importantly, I should say, you can follow us on Instagram at Read, Watch, Play Podcast. We would love to hear from you. It's where you're going to find all the information on upcoming episodes. If you want your listener comments included, that's where we're taking those right now. Usually we'll post some stories or we'll add it as part of the post when a new episode's coming out. So make sure you follow us, and we definitely want to interact with you there. So don't be afraid to leave a message or a comment, and we'll get back. I promise you we're going to get back to you.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, you can write in as well to the Gmail account, rewatchplaypod@gmail.com. Send thoughts about the show.
That's where you can send your negative thoughts.
Yeah, that's where you can send your negative thoughts.
Your 4-star ratings and below, that's where you send those.
Yeah, and we'll just mark them as spam and never talk to you again.
Cut you from our lives.
Yeah. The show comes out Tuesdays at midnight Eastern. So if you want to get thoughts in, that's our release date. We usually record on weekends. Like Nick said, with the Instagram, that's like probably the best place to interact with us. But we'll check the Gmail
that every day. Yeah.
If you don't have one or you want to send in longer thoughts. Any other housekeeping we got to do? I think those are the main points.
No, let's get on with the Trinity test here.
Yeah, let's do it. We'll move on and we'll get into kind of a little bit of summary and our experience with Oppenheimer.
So, Randy, you going to read the back of the book to us this time, or do you write your own synopsis?
Yeah, it's this is not the back of the book. I actually read this on Kindle. So I was trying to find screenshots of the back of the book, but I couldn't do it. So this is a little bit of the synopsis from Goodreads, which I thought kind of stunk. So I'm going to add a little bit of my own flair to it. Whoever's writing those summaries, maybe look for a new career. So American Prometheus is the name of the actual biography. Kind of a pretty cool name, actually.
That's awesome name.
First full-scale biography of J. Robert Oppenheimer, father of the atomic bomb, the brilliant, charismatic physicist who led the effort to capture the awesome fire of the sun for his country in time of war. Immediately after Hiroshima, he became the most famous scientist of his generation, one of the iconic figures of the 20th century, the embodiment of the modern man confronting the consequences of scientific progress. Now, what I think was lacking a little bit, and a huge selling point to me, at least, is the entire last third of the book, where Oppenheimer was subjected to this kind of witch hunt by some factions within the U.S. government the FBI, people he thought were close to him, who felt slighted by Oppenheimer years previously. And the story covers those really turbulent years of Oppenheimer's life and seeing things unravel post sort of World War II, and what it did to a man who was, for a very brief time, a hero for being a major player and ending the war. So I thought, I felt like the Goodreads didn't hit that. And I think if you're interested in seeing the movie or seeing the book, that's a critical part of like why this might be an interesting story to you. Nick, when did you become aware of sort of this book or movie?
Yeah, so I think for me it was movie first and then book. And the way it happened was I saw those beautiful baby blues on the screen from Cillian Murphy, and I had to look to see what this movie was. Saw it was Oppenheimer. I was like, oh, cool, they're making a movie about this. And then you texted me that it was also a book called American Prometheus and that we should do this. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'll pick up the book. So I went out and I bought the book, and then I realized you made me buy a textbook, and started working my way through that one. And yeah, I actually did finish. Sometimes I don't always finish these books before I watch the movie. I kind of go back and forth a little bit, but this one I actually did finish the book before the movie, mostly because I had to wait for it to come out by the time I was done. Because I didn't see it in theaters. I mean, really, you're just lucky. You're lucky his eyes are so dreamy, because that is the only reason I let you try to ruin my life by making me read this book.
We set an initial deadline for like 30 days. All right, let's read this book. We'll get it done by the end of this month, and then we'll see 4 months. Yeah, we blew so many deadlines on this one, where eventually we're like, we got to have this come out with the release of the movie. You know, we got to pick up on that buzz for the podcast. And then we're like, maybe when it hits streaming. I mean, the
movie came out in what, July?
Yeah, it was July 21st, I believe.
I didn't finish the book until the end of September.
Yeah, it was probably September for me as well. And I started it in July, or maybe June.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I knew this movie was coming out because Nolan in the movie world always has a bit of, I wouldn't say a bit of buzz, that's an understatement of the year. People get very excited for Christopher Nolan movies. He doesn't produce a ton, but when he does, people get excited and people watch them. So as a fan of movies and a person who listens to movie pods, like one of my favorite, The Big Picture, I knew this was coming out. I'm not a Nolan diehard. There's some things I haven't seen, but I like Nolan. I love Memento. Memento's an amazing movie. The Dark Knight. I mean, how do you not like The Dark Knight? Inception was a right time, right place movie for me. But I was excited for this. I like a history, though I don't like, we'll get into this a little bit, I don't like a biopic. And book-wise, I had no idea that this was a book until someone mentioned it, on a podcast that I was listening to, and I was like, well, that's a perfect excuse to cover this, for us. And I also did not realize that I was getting us into an 800-page biography.
Textbook. Stop saying biography. Textbook.
Yeah, but we did it. We got into it. We finished it, and I'm pretty proud of us for that. For those who listen to the bonus pod, obviously this showed up on both of our lists, and so if you listen to that, you're probably a little bit aware of how we feel about it. Nick is high on it. I'm pretty high on it, not as high as Nick, but we both liked it. I mean, it was a huge achievement this year, and movies felt like they were back over the summer, and I love that.
I mean, you're going to cover the box office numbers. I mean, so is it really any surprise that we both loved this movie? I mean, the world loved this movie. Yeah, exactly. I mean, before we get into the background, just kind of starting with the book a little bit, what did you think? Have you ever read a book that made you wish you were illiterate before?
Just didn't even have the option to read.
Yeah, I thought about the things the book did well, and there's a really cool picture of Oppenheimer on the cover. American Prometheus is a great title. End list.
And there.
End there. I mean, God. And then I was starting to think about, who am I going to recommend this book to? Well, maybe like a hipster.
Yeah.
They love everything that sucks. So they probably like this. I could see masochists loving this. Does pain and suffering get you off? Do you like bleeding from the eyes? I've got a book for you. Like, I really struggled to get through this textbook, Randy. I really did.
Yeah. I'm sure physicists who actually understand any of these words or people in the first 200 pages may enjoy this as well.
I think I said this in Jurassic Park, but I literally had to Google a word 50 times in this book. My vocabulary skyrocketed. I will give this book that. My vocabulary is at least double what it was before I started on this 18-month endeavor of reading this 10,000 page textbook.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I went into this book, not really sure of what Niels Bohr did. And I came out of this book still kind of unsure what Niels Bohr did. But that's my personal, science doesn't penetrate this brain.
Yeah.
Not much does, but that one is definitely not getting through. Yeah.
And, I was joking. There are some things I thought the book did really well. I thought it spent a really appropriate amount of time on his background and the events of his childhood that defined his character, his point of view, his struggles. Obviously not obviously, for those of you who didn't read the book, I don't know if it's really brought up enough in the movie, but he came from a place of extreme privilege, wasn't affected by the Depression, always was in the upper class of society. But that doesn't mean that he didn't struggle with fitting in, because he was so, intellectually superior to a lot of people, because, he didn't communicate well on like a personal level or an interpersonal level. I thought it talked about that a lot. I thought actually what the book did a lot better than the movie was showing how these scientists were in open defiance of the military and security protocols and gave zero fucks about what they were supposed to be doing, because they were having those intellectual and moral arguments daily. And Oppenheimer had to really, keep that team focused. And they touch on it in the movie, and it is a part of it, but they really talk about it in the book. And with each individual that was there too. You talk about 15 scientists for like 20 pages each.
There's no way to get around it. This is an 800-page biography, and it feels like an 800-page biography.
Yeah.
And
the movie also really didn't. Sorry, no, you finish. I'm sorry. I thought you were done speaking.
I was just going to add, I like history, and something that big doesn't bother me. It doesn't intimidate me. But look, it is a long book, and, with a biography, you're going to hit these same story beats. You're going to have childhood. You're going to have their coming of age. You're going to have the peak. You're going to have death and legacy. And, whatever, like that's how these go. And I thought the book was fine to good. What I will say, the credit I will give it, is that the research and the extensiveness of like what the authors pulled together is extremely impressive. This is a comprehensive story that has so many perspectives of those in Oppenheimer's life.
No, you're absolutely right there. And I think to your point about hitting those same beats, one of the things that I thought was really important to the book that was not important in the movie was this transformation from repressed nerd to like intellectual frat boy that he went on, where he, they cut out a lot of like Gene and Kitty, and those were vastly important people to this story, and they were barely in the movie. Yeah, I thought. For their role in what happened and how we got to where we did, they should have been in like at least an hour more of that movie.
Yeah, I agree. Interesting. I found the childhood bits. I was feeling not out on the beginning of the book, but the beginning of the book was very hard for me. There was so much science and so much I just didn't care. I wouldn't say I didn't care. I found it very interesting, and it's necessary for understanding Oppenheimer's decisions later on in his life. But I wasn't riveted by like the beginning of the book. And I found as I was reading and I got to New Mexico and even more so the legal drama at the end, I was like, if you gave me a 250-page book on the legal drama around Oppenheimer, I would be like, this is an amazing, story. And I love that. And I totally understood then, as we get into the movie, why Nolan and the writers centered the movie as like that as the conclusion. Because it was extremely interesting to see how all of this unraveled after the sort of massive moment of Trinity Test dropping of the bombs. And I love that part of the book. It kind of sent me off on a high note of Oppenheimer, where the beginning was just weighing me down. I felt like with cinder blocks around my ankles.
Yeah, I see your point. I don't know that I agree. It didn't really pick up for me at that point. But I can see why you feel that way. And I think other people will probably agree with you on that part, because that was, on the scale of like best to worst parts of this book, that was really fascinating. And I think a lot of it you can probably figure out from other places, but they did a really good job diving in depth into that process in Lewis Strauss. And I wouldn't have known that without this book.
Yeah, absolutely. The other point I'll make on the book, I think, is I do feel the author's biases show through a bit. And that doesn't bother me necessarily because, I mean, look, all humans have biases. And no matter how objective you try and be, it will show through a bit. But you can really sense a love and a defense a bit of Oppenheimer from the authors. And that's not a bad thing at all. I mean, these are one of the guys we'll talk about in the background. I mean, he worked on this for decades. I mean, and this is his field of expertise. So that shows through a little bit of compiling almost this defense. And that isn't necessarily what the movie does. The movie, I think, takes a little bit of a different tact of presenting the complicated figure that Oppenheimer is. And it's not that the book doesn't present him as a complicated figure. I just think the movie, you're not walking away from Oppenheimer thinking of him like as a true blue hero. You're coming away thinking, this is a guy who was a genius, no doubt, made some really naive mistakes. And you're still almost as confused as some of the other people of like, what did he and did he not know? What were his intentions? Was he truly naive to everything going on around him? So I think that's the only other thing I'll add to the book. We'll get into whether I think at the closing, if we recommend you should read this or not. I think you can stamp Nick down for a skip.
If you haven't figured out what I'm going to say, you might want to turn this off because you're just not going to care.
But I think you took you had a different outcome from the movie. How'd you feel about the movie?
Yeah, I actually thought the movie was incredible. I thought the movie was incredible. It's not without its flaws for sure, but I mean, I thought the first 10 minutes alone, the long stare, the inferno, with the quote that we'll get into in best quotes, and jumping right into the third act of the book and then telling the story from almost 3 different timelines, through the interviews, through Strauss's eyes, and then, going back and telling it through Oppenheimer's lens. And then, you had the black and white versus the color. it was classic Nolan with lots of blues and yellows and that dark cinematic tone. Really, like cinematically, it's really captivating for me.
Yeah.
The acting was incredible. The cast is full of A-listers. I mean, there's A-listers that were on the screen for, like you said, like 10 minutes. And they were like, yeah, Christopher Nolan called me. I'm going to do this movie.
Yeah.
And then the suspense that leads up to the Trinity test, to and through the Trinity test. Holy shit. You are on the edge of your seat for like an hour. I could not wait to see what was going to happen next there. And then the use of sound during the Trinity test. Come on. It's unparalleled in 2023. I mean, I can't think of a movie that had a better use of sound than Oppenheimer in 2023.
And to think where that came, like where Nolan came from with that, where he is very critiqued for his sound in his movies. I think of The Dark Knight Rises with Bane, like how much people were like, I have no idea what he's saying. Usually the sort of background environmental sounds are so loud in his movies that people really struggle deciphering the dialogue. But I think he really got that right. I think in this one, you're totally right. Anything else you want to sound off on there?
No. What'd you think? I mean, I know it was on your list for the best of 2023.
Yeah.
But where do you kind of see this fitting, your overall? And like, what did you like? Like, what was for you? What was your moment in this movie that you were like, this is it?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not sure what the term is for something below masterpiece, but I think that's where this sits. It's in that tier below for me. This is an excellent movie. Okay. And it's more enthralling than a 3-hour, partially black and white biography should be. Like, this shouldn't be as exciting as it is. And I think that is a feat in itself. There are some issues I have with it, but they are very minor in comparison to what the movie does well. I think what I love most is that this is not a traditional biopic. I'm very, I don't want to say this. It's not that they're so hit or miss for me. Maybe they're just a miss for me traditionally. I get very bored of the birth, coming of age we talked about, peak, death. Like it's weird because I like history, but I just don't care about a biopic movie. There's no interest for me on that. And I think what I loved is that the editing and the structure of this movie does not follow that same trajectory at all. It is this present day, fast cutting back to like key moments in childhood. And it just feels more, like a thriller in some ways. And like almost this, adventure movie than it does a biography. And I really loved that about it. And, this is something that I think in the hands of a worse director would climax at the Trinity test. It would have some cheesy ending with a slideshow of the real life people against the actors with, where are they now? What did they go on to do after this? And it's like, I'm just so glad he did not do any of that bullshit. Because like, I just don't care about that. I agree. Like I said, I agree with you on the sound. And I think the score from Ludwig Göransson was awesome. It was really good. I want to give a shout out to the cinematographer. I think you say his name, Hoyt van Hoytema, and the editor, Jennifer Lame. I mean, I think they're the hero of this adaptation. How you take something as dense as American Prometheus and make it feel so fast at the first 2 hours of this movie is unbelievable. I mean, the first 2 hours is zip by in this. And I think that is a feat. And both of those people are long-term collaborators with Nolan. The cinematographer, Hoyt, he's done most of Nolan's work. He's done Dunkirk and Tenet, Interstellar, but he also worked on Nope and The Fighter. Jennifer Lame is huge. Her work outside of Nolan has been Hereditary, the horror movie out of A24, which people love. So these are two really big people who I think are almost the real heroes of the movie for me. So I think they did a great job. I think it was an entire, like a massive effort by all parties that just came together and produced something truly exceptional that has some flaws, but I still think truly exceptional.
Okay. No, I agree with everything you said.
Yeah.
I have nothing to add there.
So I guess what we want to do now is get into the background a little bit.
Yeah, you want to start with the book and then we'll hit the movie?
Yeah. American Prometheus. This was written by Kai Bird and the late Martin Sherwin. Unfortunately, Martin was not ever able to see the movie. He passed away in 2021. And he was an American historian who served as faculty at numerous universities like Princeton, Penn, UC Berkeley. And he had the focus on nuclear weapons and nuclear proliferation. Kai Bird is an American author and columnist with a focus on the Vietnam War, atomic bombings, U.S. political relations, and biographies. This book actually came out in 2005, 721 pages to be exact. We've been saying 800, 721.
Felt like
and has a 4.28 on Goodreads.
Wow.
Goodreads ratings kind of all over the map for me sometimes.
I don't understand. I'll read a book that is garbage, and all of a sudden it's got 4.9 stars. And I'm like, who is rating this?
Yeah, I know. I agree. I mean, I still a feat in research, but in terms of a gripping novel, not quite it.
Yeah.
This book actually began in 1979 by Martin Sherwin, and which is absolutely insane. That is almost 50 years ago, just over 40 years. He received a contract for $70,000 in 1980 to write the book. And between 1979 and 1985, Martin conducted interviews with 112 persons in Oppenheimer's orbit. He had documentation that consisted of 50,000 some pages of interviews, transcripts, declassified documents. And he missed deadline after deadline after deadline for this book. And people began to gossip that Sherwin was the latest victim of Oppenheimer, of just getting sucked into Oppenheimer's world, not being able to remove himself from it. And it became a joke within his own family, saying that he was going to take this book to the grave.
I completely understand the missing deadlines on this one.
Yeah,
we very, very similar to what we did.
Yeah, we're with you, Martin. But I mean, it kind of lends insight as to why this book is as long as it is with how much he compiled. 20 years later, 1999, still no book from Martin. Kai Bird enters the picture. He was a friend of Sherwin's and was asked if he could join him in getting the book together into a cohesive story. 6 years later, they do it together, and he had actually initially refused the offer, but then they eventually signed a contract for $290,000, and a few years later, we have our book in 2005. Went on to win the National Book Critics Circle Award, Pulitzer Prize for biography or autobiography. This book had a long journey from start. I mean, also 79, many people involved in the story are like very much alive.
Yeah.
We're not that far after.
No, we're like not even 20 years after the end of the book, or just over 20 years after the end, like where the book ends, I should say.
I mean, 79 is closer to the events of this book than we are to 1979 right now.
It's a really good way to put that. Jesus.
Yeah, I know. It's a little bit scary. So kind of converting this into the adaptation, we talked about this was released on July 21st of this year by Universal Pictures, directed by Christopher Nolan. We talked scored by Ludwig Göransson. Massive ensemble cast that if we were to list the names of who is in this movie, we would spend the rest of the pod doing that. Sort of the match strike that happened with this adaptation was while filming Tenet, Robert Pattinson gifted Christopher Nolan a book of Oppenheimer speeches. And this stoked this budding interest Nolan had of Oppenheimer. He was already developing these feelings that he thought Oppenheimer was maybe the most important man in history. And this kind of pushed that even a little bit further and really captured his desire to convert American Prometheus into a movie. And the adaptation rights for this had been owned since 2015 by a J. David Wargo, who appears to be a rich dude and also has the first initial J. It's like, maybe get off Oppenheimer's dick a little bit here. Like, what are we doing? Like, you own the movie rights, you use the same first initial. A little weird. However,
why don't you start calling me N. Tyler?
Yeah, like, get a life. However, this dude agreed to work with Nolan, and it got underway. Nolan worked primarily with Kai Bird, as at this point Sherwin was battling cancer and unable to travel. And Nolan and those two were they're credited with they have the writing credits on this movie. So it was primarily those three, doing this. For as big of a movie this is, it was only 57 days of shooting, which is enormously fast.
Yeah.
And there's not much to talk about in terms of, getting the gang together for the casting, because Nolan has his people and he uses them and reuses them and he selects who he wants.
Yeah. His name also commands like, hey, Christopher Nolan called to do a movie. Sure. Yeah. What's the part? What's the role? I already said yes, but like, let me get the script now.
Yeah. He's in the echelon of, a Tarantino or a Scorsese where they can get people to play bit roles, which many people can't get. Currently sitting at a worldwide total of 955.2 million. Damn, so close to the 1 billion mark, but they're not there. This is the second highest R-rated film of all time, behind Joker, which was kind of surprising to me. I also didn't know that
Joaquin Phoenix Joker movie.
Yeah, the Joaquin Phoenix.
Joe Quinn.
Yeah, Joe Quinn. I know. I was about to make a joke but resisted, so I'm glad you did. Joaquin. Interestingly, it is the highest grossing film ever to not reach the top spot at the box office, and that is because it coincided with the release of Barbie. Though I still think it is better box office wise for having done that, obviously with the Barbenheimer phenomenon.
Yeah.
But still kind of always a bridesmaid, never a bride for Oppenheimer movie. I don't think we need to talk about the critical reception here. I mean, this movie was loved. And it was a big year for the movies because of it.
It was.
We'll take a break and we will come back with the rapid fire questions and categories. Let's get back into it. You got some rapid fire questions?
I do. I got 3 for you.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Number 1. Which performance is more iconic? Cillian Murphy as Oppenheimer or Cillian Murphy as Tommy Shelby?
I haven't seen Peaky Blinders.
Randy.
I know.
You're killing me. What?
I know you're a Peaky Blinders stan, and I know we have a few listeners who also are massive Peaky Blinder heads.
Blinders.
Yeah. I think that Oppenheimer will go down as his most iconic.
I'm not so sure. I'm being totally honest. I'm not so sure.
Yeah.
You need to watch at least season. There are only 6 episodes each season.
Yeah.
They're BBC.
Oh, really?
It's weird over there. They only do 6 episodes, but they're like an hour long each.
Yeah. Sherlock was the same as that, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Same thing.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. I'm just already so disappointed.
Yeah. Sorry.
I'm going to put this Millersville education to the test. Albert Einstein is famously in this book and movie several times. What do the letters in E equals MC squared stand for?
I will preface this with science is my worst subject. That was one of my biggest issues with the beginning of the book. Was I know jack shit about science. I'm awful at it. I have terrible short-term memory. So E equals MC squared. Literally have no idea. I don't know. Elephants equal monkey cookies. Literally no idea. What is it?
Energy equals mass times the speed of light squared.
Okay. Cool.
It's part of the special theory of relativity.
Guarantee you, if you ask me that again at the end of the podcast, we'll not be able to tell you.
We're definitely going to ask you that at the end of the podcast, though. All right. Last question I got for you before we jump into the categories. Was there a better scene in cinema in 2023 than the Trinity test?
I'm just Ken, for sure.
Fair.
No, I'm just kidding. No, I think this will go down as one of the greatest scenes in movie history.
Really? Not just 2023, all of movie history?
Movie history, yeah.
I love it. Yeah, I agree. I don't disagree, but that's a bold statement. Glad you made it, so I didn't have
to. All right. What is the most important thing this movie needed to get right for it to be successful?
I think that there is a really delicate balance that needed to be, walked, where you need to show how, intellectually superior Oppenheimer was over these politicians, while simultaneously playing checkers while they're playing chess politically. For somebody so smart and who can put so many pieces together, he was so bad at the political game, in my opinion, that it's ultimately what led to this witch hunt being able to sustain for all of these years. And it led to the attacks from Strauss and, pissing off these people who really understood how politics worked. That I thought was going to be very difficult to show. And that's where I thought the 3 timeline decision that Nolan and the rest of the crew made really, really worked. And I thought that was really important to this, because if you don't do that, then you don't understand. It kind of takes away from the Strauss thing at the end of the book, where, he was attacking him and it ultimately led to him not getting that position because he pissed off the scientists who rallied. But that's really hard.
That's a good point. I mean, and a slight difference from book to movie is we talked about how book takes a traditional historical route of birth to death and legacy. And the movie we also talked about takes a little bit of a different tack. There's these 3 chunks. There's this present day fast, hard cut with sort of coming of age moments that really only they start showing his kind of high school-ish years. They don't even talk about birth, parents, none of that in the movie. There's this second chunk that is this heist, they called it, aspect of the movie of getting the gang together, assembling everyone in New Mexico, trying to get this project done, at this deadline. And then there's the third part, the trial. And a big difference, not just in that timeline structure, but is in the movie, they pitch Strauss at the beginning a little bit as an admirer of Oppenheimer and a friend, and bringing him to the I don't think it's a university, the institute. And he was portrayed a little bit more as a wolf in sheep's clothing in the movie that is revealed at the end. Though on rewatch, I was like, it's a little bit obvious that he's like maybe not a great guy at the beginning, but maybe that's just because I already know this and I'm looking for it. But I think the movie does a great job of laying that groundwork by almost ignoring most childhood things at the start and focusing on things that would be really important later on in this legal case. And I think you're right about that.
Yeah, that really needed to work, I think, or else it didn't work. I agree with what you said about the heist thing. That's actually pretty funny.
Yeah.
You know, it's really because they learned from George Clooney. Matt Damon was there when George Clooney did it first.
Yeah.
He learned from the best.
Yeah. He really did. He was part of both teams.
Yeah, and that really worked, I thought too. I actually think it was a really good decision to cut out a lot of the because what you pick it up pretty much when he's at Cambridge, right? And then before he goes to Germany. And I think that was a good starting point because I think a lot of the things you needed to learn about Oppenheimer could be learned while going over his time at Cambridge. And I thought that really needed to work because, like you said, it could have just been straight through and that would have been boring. Yeah. You just saw like baby Oppenheimer, child Oppenheimer, adolescent Oppenheimer, you know, like on and on and on. That would not have worked. So I think they did a really good job there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what you have to come away from this movie for it to be a success is you have to understand the complexity of Oppenheimer. And if the beginning of this film doesn't set you up to understand how someone who should be maybe a hero of the United States gets sort of hunted by them by the end of the movie, and you're also questioning his involvement, you know, use the phrase, he's playing almost a different game than everyone else. He doesn't understand how to play the game. Like how someone so smart can be in that type of circumstance. And I think that's why it is successful, because they do a great job of laying that groundwork to understand how this all unraveled at the end for him. So I agree. It's got to be focused on him, and it's got to hit those big points. So, I mean, and then converting this into, you know, from book to movie, you know, when you think about some of the best adaptation choices they made, you know, what would you say kind of ranks highly for you in terms of those choices?
I don't know that it's anything we haven't already discussed. I thought the triple timelines, I thought the delicate balance of, you know, Oppenheimer intellectually and then Oppenheimer politically, you know, that needed to be done. The other thing that I think it did, it was like good, not great for me, was the book did a really good job framing the moral arguments about creating and using the bomb that these scientists went through and had. And there's quotes and there's the different perspectives and there's a lot of nuance in that argument. And they did bring it up in the movie. And you do see some of these things, but I mean, there was like 100 pages about it in the book, probably 80 pages about it in the book. And it's a really interesting argument. And, you know, this obviously isn't the place to have that discussion, but the book did that really well. And I think that was important to bring to the movie. And I'm glad that they did.
Yeah.
In some capacity, at least.
Yeah. A slight tangent, or maybe an anecdote on that a realization I had reading the book was I fully understand now why movies and books and comics that came from people who grew up during this have this villain or idea of this super bomb or super weapon or this person who wants. I fully understand now why so many comics or Bond villains do that type of thing, because this is what was the actual fear then, that people were going to create a super weapon that could destroy the world. And like, I used to always think like, nobody would ever do this. This is so impractical. But now I read this book and I'm like, oh no, this was like a legit fear of everyone then. And that is why all of these stories have this as like the main nemesis. Like, I get it now.
Not only a fear, we did it. We literally did it.
Yeah. In terms of choices, maybe this is flirting between, it could be a best adaptation choice, it could be a worst. What did you think about the cutting of actually showing the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki?
I think that was a very appropriate choice. And it's a fine line between, you know, downplaying what those bombs actually did to not only those cities, but that country as a whole. And being, I don't want to say braggadocious, but like, you have to take that scene. If you're going to do that, it has to be very delicately done, where you are not only acknowledging the horrible thing that the United States did, but at the same time honoring the victims and the civilians we targeted to end the war. And I think I'm really glad they didn't show it. I really think it would have made this movie a bust for me if they had shown that, because I don't think the way they had portrayed everything else, I don't think you could have done that in this movie.
Yeah, I agree. We just don't need to see it. And that's not from a standpoint of like, let me ignore these horrors of the past.
Right.
It's more of just, it feels a little tasteless.
Yeah, it does.
Extremely disrespectful to show that. And I think even some of the scenes were really tough when you're seeing these almost just his, how do I want to say this? The scenes are really tough when you're trying to get that inner perspective on Oppenheimer's brain, and he's having these flashes of people screaming and that one woman's face sort of like peeling off. Like, even that was really hard to watch, and I almost wish wasn't even in there. So I agree. I think it was right to cut this. I think it was a good decision in terms of the choices for the adaptation.
I do think showing I don't want to call it like lackluster, but when they were in that room deciding where they were going to bomb, and they made the politician made the joke about, well, I was there on my honeymoon.
Oh my God.
I could really see that happening. And that was demoralizing to think like that's how little care could have gone into that decision. And that scene broke my heart. Yeah. And I think it was a good decision to show that, because you need like kind of the villain there, so let's show that, that we did that. Yeah.
I think there were two wild decisions for me in that the book and movie showcased, and that was how completely devoid of emotion they chose those locations. And like you just said,
that's the way to put that. Yes.
And then the other one is Oppenheimer being once that this was made, the just absolute cutoff of communication, where he found out that the bomb was being dropped after the fact. And I remember, I think he asked, I might have been Groves, can I come to Washington, with you to discuss this? And, Groves gives me just kind of a heavy why. And Oppenheimer's realization that he's just like, he's done. He did what he was supposed to do, and now he has no more influence on this.
Yeah.
It's kind of startling. One thing I do appreciate as an adaptation choice was, Nolan is a film purist and loves to shoot things for the big screen. He was one of the only, Tenet was one of the only movies that came out in theaters during the pandemic, and he was committed to that. And even for Oppenheimer, he was very committed to shooting this on film. He was very committed to using as many practical effects as possible. And I think the movie's better for that. It's astounding to me that the entire Trinity test is devoid pretty much of CGI. Very minor CGI, but I think that is, I think we get a better product because of it. We've talked about best. What did you have for worst adaptation choices?
I think the big one for me that we already touched on a little bit is kind of the Christopher Nolan thing, where like Kitty and Jean were cut out.
Yeah.
They were so important to his story, and they were his character, and they just really, I don't know, they just didn't have a huge role in this movie, in my opinion. Jean more than Kitty, and I would argue they were at least equally important.
Yeah.
I didn't understand that choice at all. That didn't work for me. I thought they should have been more important, whether it be key pieces of dialogue that are in there to relay information, or just physically being on the screen more. I don't know. It just didn't, they cut it out too much and it didn't work for me. And this might be a hot take. I also don't know that I think Emily Blunt was a great cast for Kitty, because when I read the book, the Kitty that I felt when reading the book had a little bit more of a hardness and a meanness to her than I think Emily Blunt has as a human being, which can make it harder to portray. I think Emily Blunt is a great actress and she kills it in a lot of roles. I don't know that this role was right for Emily Blunt.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think the literal pushing off the stage of Kitty and Jean, to me, is a wild choice.
Yeah.
You cast someone like Emily Blunt, who we see when she like really messes around with the court when she's being interviewed, and it's just like, where was that? Like, that is Kitty, and Jean is such a massive part, and she's more of just kind of like you see her as just this fling Oppenheimer has, and this like side lover, as opposed to like this extremely intelligent person that is massively important to everything that went on in Oppenheimer's life.
Yeah.
And that just kind of sucks.
And you know what, to your point, maybe if Emily Blunt had more time on screen or more dialogue with the time she did have, she could have portrayed that hardness and meanness a little bit better, because she did do a really good job with that interview.
Yeah.
So maybe it wasn't a bad cast so much as she didn't have time to portray the character the way the character needed to be portrayed.
Yeah. And I think, having maybe the most famous line reading of "I am death, destroyer of worlds" happen while Florence Pugh is literally riding Oppenheimer, that is certainly a choice. Like, that is like if in the JFK movie, he says, "Ask not what you can do for your country," while like Marilyn Monroe is on top of him in the Oval Office. Like, it is insane that this is the most famous Oppenheimer quote, and this is when it happens.
See, okay, so I actually have a different take on that line. That is funny. That is like really funny. But I had a different take, and I thought it was a way for the movie to show kind of the duality of Oppenheimer and the like wanting to be loved and accepted and find the person he was going to spend the rest of his life with, because that was something he struggled a lot with in the early parts of the book, and his, like we talked about earlier, not being able to communicate interpersonally, with also being the man who's credited with the invention of the nuclear bomb.
Yeah.
And I thought they were kind of finding a way to show that together, since you miss a lot of that beginning struggle.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I thought. But I like your take better than mine, to be honest. It's way funnier.
Yeah, that's a fair take. Yeah, it's just I could
be way off base too. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I couldn't believe it. Outside of Kitty and Jean, my only other surprise was, I don't think anybody who just reads the movie, watches the movie, comes away with how important the Chevalier incident affair was. And I think if that would have been almost a minor set piece with the same somewhat similar gravitas that the Trinity test has at the beginning of the movie, this scene of Oppenheimer having this, I think that could have really benefited the end of the movie.
Yes.
To see, like, because you're moving so fast in the beginning, where if there was a slowdown to that scene, like, your brain is going to be like, okay, this is extremely important. I think that they underplayed that a little bit.
Yeah. And that's one of those things where I don't want to call it an Easter egg, because I don't think that's the right term for that. But if you haven't read the book, you don't understand the importance of that scene right there.
Yeah.
And that's probably one of my biggest criticisms of adaptations is there are some things that are inherently difficult to show in a movie, right?
Yeah.
The example I use all the times is, hey, Mitch's drinking problem in the Hunger Games. They make nods to it where if you've read the book, you understand. And that's kind of the only way to do that. But for something where there's a scene where you're having a conversation and you can put two people in the same room together and portray that information, I feel like you as the director or the creator of this really need to make sure the audience understands that that moment sets up literally the whole second act of the movie, the second and third acts of the movie, when you have the scenes where he's talking to the MPs and the investigators, and then you have the end where he's being, or the beginning and the end where he's being grilled by this special counsel, and a lot of it stems from that moment. A lot of those questions stem from that moment, and you're right, it didn't come across in the movie.
Yeah, maybe this is a good time to talk about these. Yeah, Easter eggs is the wrong word. It is almost like these. Maybe this is just like nerdy hat tips. I have no idea what we can call this, but there is like those moments that happen where if you've read the book, you kind of know a little bit more of what's going on. And I think another one related to Jean Tatlock is there's the budding conspiracy that she was murdered by the FBI. And it's extremely high. I mean, there's a whole chapter on it in the book. And in the movie, you see the bathtub death, her dying, suicide scene, but there's a quick flash of someone holding her underwater. I don't know if your average they might see it, but within the 3-hour movie it gets lost. I got to know, do you think she was murdered or do you think it was suicide?
No comment. No comment.
Yeah, you don't want to go on record against the FBI. Yeah. I mean, that guy Pash, played by Casey Affleck, I mean, they definitely indicate that there are people capable of doing this. And yeah, there's a lot of questions around it. A lot of questions.
I mean, let's solve it right here. True crime podcast. Read, Watch, Play does true crime. Randy.
Yeah.
Was this a murder?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
you're going to say yeah?
I think it was.
Okay. You're going to take a stance here.
Yeah. If the FBI comes after me, so be it.
I had nothing to do with this.
Yeah.
I only know Randy Barrage loosely. It's not like I've known him for 20 whatever years now. Please don't come after me too.
Yeah. It's so true.
I pledge allegiance to.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, we should have done the Pledge of Allegiance to start this. The other minor thing I noticed, and this is more in the Easter egg vein, was they show Albert Einstein walking in the woods with Kurt Gödel, and there's actually they have a book together called Walking with Einstein or something, Einstein and Gödel or something, and it discusses what they talked about on their walks. So that was a nice little. I mean, this movie.
Oh, that is an Easter egg. That's a good Easter egg.
That is an Easter egg. This movie, as a person who sucks at science, there's so many names in here that I hear and I feel like I should know who they are, and I really don't. Like I hear Werner Heisenberg, and I'm like, yeah, I've seen Breaking Bad. Like Niels Bohr sounds important. No idea who he is.
Schrodinger. Yeah, I don't know if he's in the movie, but he was in the book.
Yeah. So many of those. Anything else you kind of got on some of those sort of subtle nods, Easter eggs?
No, it's not a subtle nod. This actually might have been better in the best adaptation. And I know Cillian Murphy has talked how he's not trying to mimic a person, but capture the essence of a person when he plays somebody in real life. But I think there are certain things like, the Porky Pie hat or whatever it's called that Oppenheimer wore all the time.
Yeah.
And the way he dressed, I think they did a good job, and Cillian did a good job of making like an emphasis to use that as he's physically acting. And those nods to a person, I think, were done really well. And I don't know that that's an Easter egg at all, but it's a good adaptation choice for sure.
Yeah.
Especially because, let me grab it real quick. Look at the cover. He's literally wearing the hat on the cover. You can't do, and has a cigarette in his mouth, and Cillian's smoking the whole time and wearing that hat for like an hour and a half of this movie. I think it was a great choice that they did to make those prominent features, even though you're not trying to mimic a person.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Those are all great shout outs. Lost a massive amount of weight too for this role.
Yeah.
He looks clothes are like falling off of him.
Yeah.
Let's hit best quote. I'm gonna read you a couple, and then you tell me what you think I missed here.
Okay.
I mean, we have the obvious "Now I am become death, destroyer of worlds." I also like the I don't have it written down verbatim here, and this was in the trailers, but I like when Groves and Oppenheimer are having the discussion right before the Trinity test, and he asks, "What's the chance of this blowing up the world?" And Oppenheimer's like, "Nearly zero," and he's like, "Well, what do you want?" to Groves, and he's like, "Well, zero would be nice." I thought that was a good one.
Are we saying there's a chance that when we push that button, we destroy the world?
Chances are near zero.
Near zero.
What do you want from theory alone?
Zero would be nice.
I like the title caption, "The Prometheus stole fire from the gods and gave it to man. For this, he was chained to a rock and tortured for eternity." I mean, so on the nose, but very good. I only caught this in memory on my second watch. Was this is paraphrasing as well, when the Senate aide and Strauss are discussing the failure of Strauss's efforts of what they discussed in that room and why the vote didn't work. And Strauss is like, "Well, what did they talk about? What did they say about me?" And the Senate aide was like, "No, they were talking about important things, so they didn't discuss you." And I was just like, damn.
Boom.
I was like, man, that guy had some zingers at Strauss after he realized what Strauss was doing. And and I thought a very important one at the beginning, my final one, was Gene Tatlock saying to Oppenheimer of, "Don't alienate the only people who understand what you do. One day you might need them."
You think the rules don't apply to the golden boy?
Brilliance makes up for a lot.
Don't alienate the only people in the world that understand what you do. One day you might need them.
So telling for the end. What else did you like from
I got a couple
quote section?
The first one, "How will you treat a humble physicist? If I meet one, I'll let you know," by Leslie Griffith.
Yeah. Matt Damon just
he had some zingers in this.
He's
one.
excellent in this movie. He's very, very good.
"Theory only gets you so far."
Very good one. Yeah.
Which I believe was said by Josh Hartnett's character.
Josh Hartnett. Yeah.
Or the first time it was said by Josh Hartnett's character, and that's the one that sticks in my mind.
Yeah. Lawrence is an interesting player in the Oppenheimer world, and Josh Hartnett was great. I thought he was awesome in this movie.
Fantastic.
Yeah, awesome. Very
almost
good.
Forgives Pearl Harbor.
Yeah. Almost.
And then I actually have two quotes from the book. One is, Bird and Sherwin, and one is Oppenheimer. So a quote from Oppenheimer is, "My life as a child did not prepare me for the fact that the world is full of cruel and bitter things."
That was a very good one. Yeah.
And then this is in the beginning of the book, and it's not a quote. It's Bird and Sherwin writing. I'm not sure who wrote it, so I'm going to credit both of them.
Yeah.
And yet it was the irony of Robert Oppenheimer. I'm going to start that one over.
Yeah.
Jesus. Oh, man. Maybe I do need another cup of coffee. And yet it was the irony of Robert Oppenheimer's odyssey that a life devoted to social justice, rationality, and science would become a metaphor for mass death beneath a mushroom cloud.
Yeah. It's a good one.
That's a good one, right?
Yeah, that's a very good one.
That one, I remember reading that one, and I wrote it down immediately. I was like, on this page, this line, this is the quote I want to use for best quote.
Yeah. I think you swayed me. I think that is the best. I mean, the one is so obvious. Of course, it's going to be a big quote, but I think that one is a little more telling.
Yeah, and that one didn't make the movie at all. That's just something you would pick up in the book and even kind of read through. there's a lot of really good quotes that they had in the book that sum things up very well. That is another thing the book did well.
Mm-hmm.
This textbook did well. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. What do you want to move on to next here? Do you want to do real villain now or in the closing?
Yes. Let's do the real
You want to hit the
villain.
real villain? Yeah, who do you think it was?
You, for making me read the fucking book. I can't tell you the amount of time that I spent while reading this book thinking, you know what? The world doesn't need another white guy with a podcast. I can quit now.
Yeah, Oh my God.
The real one I had like unchecked ambition, or maybe like unchecked ambition coupled with science, like the ability to do science, to understand science, to create. We talked about the intellectual, moral arguments that the scientists had, but the people in charge of the war weren't having and weren't listening to. And that's where that, the unchecked ambition to be the number one in the world, the fear of Russia at the time, the McCarthyism, these people were using witch hunts to get ahead. And it not only ruined Oppenheimer's life, but I should have, and I feel bad that I didn't do this. There's like a list of scientists who got blackballed and couldn't find other university jobs. Frank had to become a rancher, right? Like that was so fucked. Yeah. And I actually we'll put a list out on Instagram or something, because those scientists deserve recognition too.
Yeah. Yeah. I think Lomanitz is his name. I think he was Oppenheimer's first student. You see him in that first scene. And he is one who ends up working on like that, like almost prison, prison labor work. Yeah. Just terrible stuff that happened to those people. I don't think my take is different. I had power or fear is the real villain here. And, not taking a stance on if I think the US should have, dropped the bomb or not. But, that decision was from a place of, desire for power by the US, a place of fear of, what if this continues to drag on and more lives are lost, and, what can happen, and not being the first to have the atomic bomb. And then I think also just like at a more micro level, Strauss, he's
absolutely
is on, his entire motivations are predicated on power and fear, desire to lift himself up in any way possible, almost Littlefinger-esque from Game of Thrones, and just being that tunnel visioned ambition seeker, and then the fear of just inadequacy and of his sort of roots drive him so much that he will do anything to get a shred of power. And then, like you mentioned, the fear of McCarthyism and vilifying anyone, everyone and anyone. So absolutely, power and fear for me.
Yeah, great. And then I think you're right with Strauss at the micro level. Robert Downey Jr. killed it in that role.
Yeah, too. Very good.
Very good performance.
Do you want to do then? Move on to our award nominations for best casting.
Yeah. So Randy, I'm gonna list my nominees for the best casting for this movie, and you are going to award our little mock Oscar. I don't know. We'll come up with a better title at some point. Yeah. But you can give the award. And then I'm curious to hear what you think of my nominees. Yeah. Because I'm actually only going to give you 2.
Wow.
I cut it down. And I'm going to defend why I gave you only 2. Yeah. And why I'm giving you the 2 I'm giving you. Yeah. So keep that in mind. But the nominees for best casting in Oppenheimer are Josh Hartnett as Ernest Lawrence and David Krumholtz as Isidore Isaac Rabi. And those are your only choices. And here's why I say that. Let me defend it first. You could make Cillian Murphy an Oompa Loompa in Wonka, and you're going to talk about how good the Oompa Loompas were. Yeah. He is an A-list actor who has shown time and time again that he can carry a movie. Like, it was a great performance. Same with Matt Damon as General Leslie R. Groves. awesome performances from awesome actors, both of whom can carry a movie. But casting Josh Hartnett and David Krumholtz in those roles and getting the performance they did out of them makes that such a good casting decision.
Yeah.
Like, it's a no-brainer to cast Cillian Murphy in a movie. It's a no-brainer. Of course, that's a good decision. But those two, to get the role, like the performances they did, they were amazing.
Yeah.
So those are my nominees for best casting.
And you just completely slighted Robert Downey Jr. RDJ just gets the shaft. Yeah.
We just, but again, that's the same thing. Robert Downey Jr. is another actor who you have complete faith is going to crush a role where he's playing a villain.
Yeah. Though, I mean, we haven't seen him do this type of acting in, I mean, because he was all wrapped up in the MCU. We haven't seen RDJ doing this in years. And I thought that was awesome to see him here.
That's also fair. But I still think he's got that. I mean, he's got that name power. And the character, to be honest, is not dissimilar from other characters we've seen him do in the past. But when you think about Josh Hartnett, you're like, this is the guy from Pearl Harbor, right? And when you think about David Krumholtz, you're like, is that Bernard? Is
the head elf from the Santa Claus. Yeah.
Is this a crossover? Are we about to see Tim Allen? Like, so those are why I'm only nominating those two for best casting this time around.
Yeah. David Krumholtz, I don't think it's best casting. I mean, he was great, fine. But I will say
fine. I thought he killed that role.
Yeah, he was great. Yeah. But Rabbi, I don't know how you say it. I think it's Rabbi. He's a real one. Like, he was so loyal to Oppenheimer and just seemed through and through a solid friend over so many awful things that Oppenheimer went through. Some self-inflicted, some, not self-inflicted.
Mm-hmm.
Just seemed like a great dude. That was one of my notes from the books, is like, this guy he's a great guy.
Great guy.
Yeah, Lawrence was awesome in this. I think he was really good. I don't think I agree with Lawrence as a human and kind of how he acted. But I thought Hartnett was great as it. If I had to pick one of them, I'd probably go David Krumholtz.
Okay.
Even though this Academy will literally be lit on fire for not selecting Cillian Murphy.
Oh, yeah. Listen, Cillian Murphy had the best performance in the movie, I think. Cillian Murphy carried that movie through and through. But Cillian Murphy is so good at what he does that's not surprising. He didn't step up for that role. He just delivered the same excellence you're used to from Cillian Murphy. And
yeah,
it's a great casting choice, but it's, again, you could put him in anything and it's going to be awesome. He's going to give it 110% and it's going to be great. But I think what I thought for best casting, since it's my turn to give them to you, is we're going to go with somebody who really stepped up beyond what we've seen in the past from them.
Yeah, I could not disagree more, because as a person who's not watched Peaky Blinders, I know Cillian Murphy as a supporting actor in Nolan movies. And
really,
I think to say he didn't step up on the big screen for the first time, in my opinion, it completely undersells. Television is a totally different ball game than movies. I mean, he's most known for, looking on IMDb, 28 Days Later, Inception, Sunshine, and Oppenheimer. I mean, he wasn't a big role in Inception. He was just playing the air.
He was the bad guy in Time, which the movie wasn't great, but he was.
But this is his first leading man mega movie where it entirely rests upon his performance. And I think it is a complete understatement to what he did with this role to say that it was a shoo-in for a good performance.
Wrong. Just wrong.
Yeah. You're blinded by Peaky Blinders.
But okay, but with your same argument, 6 seasons of that show rested on his shoulders. They're hour long. They're basically movies. Every episode's basically a movie. And I'm not trying to knock the performances of anybody else in Peaky Blinders, because there are some incredible actors and actresses who deliver roles that I will remember for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
But he was so good in that. But he said, like, even as not a leading man in those supporting roles, you could just tell that he was a movie star.
Yeah.
And a good actor, which are not synonyms, by the way. And I will die on that hill. Because you look at Vin Diesel and The Rock, they're movie stars. They're not good actors.
Yeah.
Cillian Murphy is both. He is a movie star and a good actor. And you could tell, in my opinion, you could tell that when he was Scarecrow in Batman.
Mm-hmm.
And I was not surprised at all by how good his performance was.
Yeah.
I loved it.
It begs the question of, is best casting, does that stop at casting the role, or is it follow through too?
Follow through. I think best casting is almost purely the follow through on the role. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. I think you would have had me on board if your nominee was Matt Damon, because I think that this movie works without Lawrence or Rabi, but I don't think this movie works without Matt Damon. And the levity he brings these scenes are incredible.
Do you think Matt Damon stepped up and delivered a performance better than you expected from Matt Damon in that role?
I think it was a different Matt Damon than we've seen. You mentioned at the beginning Ocean's 11. Matt Damon grew up on these roles where he's I don't even know how to describe it. I mean, they pick on him in Ocean's 11 essentially, and he's grown into roles like The Martian, which are amazing leading man roles. But this is a older Matt Damon who's almost he's the teacher. He's corralling all of these scientists into trying to get this done with Oppenheimer. But I think this is a different Matt Damon than we've seen. And I'm not saying I expected Matt Damon to show up on screen and fall flat. But I don't think the movie works without Matt Damon.
Do you think that you've seen The Martian, right?
Yeah, love it.
Do you think it's that different than I thought he brought a lot of levity to The Martian as a leading man too. And he had a wide range of emotions and did very well there.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of other Good Will Hunting. He was excellent in that too. Like that's like what his first big movie that because they wrote it.
Yeah.
Him and Ben Affleck wrote that. I don't know. I think Matt Damon has always been a leading man. And
totally.
When you put him in that supporting role and he gets to lean into not, when you're a leading man, there's only a certain amount of things that the audience is going to believe. But when you are a supporting character, you get the freedom to kind of push those boundaries a little bit. And I thought it was again, stellar A+ performance from Matt Damon.
Yeah.
It was great. Best supporting actor, probably.
Yeah.
One of them or one of the nominees for it for sure. But again, I don't think Matt Damon stepped up and delivered a performance better than I thought Matt Damon would deliver in a Christopher Nolan movie.
Yeah. 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 I think maybe my argument is more of this is just I think it's a different Damon than we've seen, and not from he's never done leading or never done comedy. Fair. But I think if you see the picture of Leslie Groves in the book, a military, overweight, hard ass, my mind doesn't think Matt Damon. And I think it was more excitement that like, oh, Matt Damon is like, he's an older guy now. Like he's the one in charge here. And he's not, kind of this kid anymore on screen. And, it's not that he wasn't The Martian. That's correct. But I think it's funny seeing him being the oldest, most rational person in the room in this
you're
movie.
Right. That is pretty funny. I'll give you that. I will.
Like Matt Damon is doing that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about RDJ at all?
I don't have much to say other than he killed it. I've thought a lot about this, and I don't think that maybe it should have been best casting. nominee, but he was so perfect for that role. For that, like you said, the wolf in sheep's clothing, the analogy you used. Robert Downey Jr. is that actor to me in Hollywood in all of those roles.
Yeah.
But then again, that goes back to that's what I expected. His incredible performance there is exactly what I expected from him.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not trying to downplay what he did. He was brilliant, but I expected brilliance from him in that role.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a great time seeing him play a complete weasel.
Yeah,
it
not
was
Iron Man. Yeah.
So different than Tony Stark. And, I saw a lot of his movies younger in his career, but I didn't see much that he was making, like the very short side projects he did during his run as Tony Stark. It was just really fun seeing him in this, and I thought he did great.
Yeah.
Do you think Cillian or RDJ will win an Oscar?
I think
they'll get Best Actor and Best Supporting?
I think Cillian will, at a minimum, be nominated.
Oh, I'd say he is first on the ballot.
I don't know enough about who else is going to be nominated and their movies to definitively say I think it's going to be Cillian.
Yeah.
And I don't know about RDJ, but do you think it's possible that both RDJ and Matt Damon get the nod? Or do you think, I would think RDJ would get it over Matt Damon, but I also think Matt Damon may get a nom for it.
Yeah.
I think RDJ is definitely going to be nominated. I don't know enough about who else is going to be nominated against him to know if he's going to get Best Supporting Actor.
Yeah. I think he'll go against Cillian will go against Bradley Cooper in Maestro, Paul Giamatti in The Holdovers. Those are the only two I really know. Jeffrey Wright in American Fiction.
I haven't seen any of those.
Supporting actor. Maestro is pretty good. I think I give it a 3.5 out of 5.
Is that one of those movies where they were trying to win an Oscar? Like they make the movie.
It did feel a little bit like Oscar bait. I will say that. Actually, actor in a supporting role, I just looked up the betting odds. This is a stacked category. You have De Niro in Killers of the Flower Moon, Gosling in Barbie, Charles Melton in May December, which is an awesome movie on Netflix, and then Mark Ruffalo in Poor Things. They only have RDJ in the running now for Oppenheimer. That's going to be tough. That is a stacked cast.
That is good. There's some huge names in that category.
Yeah.
I actually am going to say that I would take RDJ over De Niro. And that hurts me to say that because I am a De Niro stan. I watch a De Niro movie 2 times a month, minimum.
Yeah.
And I'll rewatch the same movies just to watch De Niro in them. And De Niro killed it. I thought De Niro was great in Killers, but RDJ as Strauss was unreal, like in a league of its own, in my opinion. And I have to go watch these other movies now before I say that definitively, but I don't understand how he doesn't have odds, like not good odds.
Yeah. Should we move on to best movie scene?
Yeah. Do you have some nominees? Because I can't imagine we disagree on this.
Yeah, I'll give some movie scenes.
Okay. And the nominees are
best movie scene. And the nominees are Oppenheimer's speech scene in the gymnasium, where he's having almost the movie embodiment of a panic attack on screen.
The world will remember this day.
Yes.
The Matt Damon getting the gang together for the heist in New Mexico, bringing in the Avengers of physicists to Los Alamos.
Yeah. His best George Clooney impression.
Yeah. Literally. Though was Brad Pitt doing a lot of running around in Ocean's 11 too.
That's fair.
And Matt Damon's probably pretty happy he's finally doing that over Brad. Kitty on trial. And her kind of given, I think his name was Rob, a bit of a shakedown in the scene when everyone thought, and that is hard cut with Remy Malek revealing the true corruption of the Kangaroo Court orchestrated by Strauss. That was a one scene where Kitty is, sort of really going at them, revealing with how BS all of this was. And the Trinity test. No comment on the Trinity test, but has to be in there. So you got four nominees. What are you going with?
It's the Trinity test. I already said it. I think it's the best scene in cinema in 2023. I couldn't think of a better one. And then you agreed with me. I don't know how else anything wins. It was a masterclass in filmmaking, that scene.
Yeah.
Enough said. I got nothing else to add. All great other choices, by the way. You picked some really good ones.
Yeah. I'm not sure. There are very few movie moments in theaters that I think I'll remember more than the Trinity test. And we're going to have another nominee for best use of sound. But the waiting for the sound of the bomb to come through and everyone's reaction, it was just even on my rewatch, I had full body chills rewatching that scene again.
Yeah.
It was so just unbelievably done. So good. So is that your winner?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What'd you got for best use of sound? Hit me with that.
Best use of sound. I only have two. What I just mentioned, the Trinity test. I mean, I'm not sure that there really is another option, but the delay on the explosion, like I said, is just incredible.
Yeah, because it goes silent.
I mean, to cut everything, such a great choice.
It's kind of what they say in music too, where sometimes the best notes are the ones you don't play.
Yeah.
Same thing. That lack of sound was the best use of sound.
Yeah, it was so good. It was so intense. I felt like I was, just gonna, I don't even know, melt into the floor in the theater.
It was so. I was putting sunscreen on and while I'm sitting at home.
Yeah, you were lathered up.
Yeah.
The second option I had was, again, this is not my knowledge. I picked this up listening to Sean Fennessy on The Big Picture, and they talk about this device Nolan uses called double helixes, where he puts something out there and then returns to it in a different way. And kind of almost like echoing, like the beginning of the movie, seeing sort of the raindrops. And then at the end of the movie, you're seeing the raindrops in the lake with Einstein. The other one is Strauss feeling embarrassed by what Oppenheimer did to him and wanting to attack him. Oppenheimer feeling embarrassed by his professor and nearly killing him with an apple. Like there's these like repeating sort of storylines that are shown in different contexts. But I think if I think about that in terms of sound, the stamping on the gymnasium floor is a sound that repeats, I think 3 or 4 times throughout the movie that just builds so much tension. And one of them is the obvious in the gymnasium where he's having like this literal panic attack. And you're just hearing that slamming down noise. And the other one is the scene where he's being investigated about Jean Tatlock and her murder. And you're seeing how there are these 2 moments that kind of maybe defined Oppenheimer's life to himself, which is the decision to make this and dealing with that. And also feeling responsible for Jean Tatlock's murder. And both those sounds, that stamping and like, it's just literally makes you want to have a panic attack yourself, are repeated throughout there. And I thought that use was really, really well done.
Nice.
But is it going to beat the Trinity test? Probably not.
No.
Awesome. Let's
should we wrap this up? Get to the closing?
Wrap this up. Pause there. We'll move on to closing.
Yeah. Who won the book for
Um,
you, Randy?
who won the book for me? I'm actually going to go. Uh, there's a case it could be Kai Bird because it appears, was the one who helped pull this all together to the finish line.
Mm-hmm.
But I have to give credit to Martin Sherwin, and the stories like this, they don't make it to the big screen in what we got if someone like Martin Sherwin is not doing 30, 40 years of work to document this. And even if it is not the most enthralling read from start to finish, understatement of the year for Nick Hinkson, I'm so impressed by what he did. And it's an important story to tell. And it paints a light on a person that I had no idea that all of this happened after the making of the bomb. So I want to give a shout out to Martin Sherwin, and so unfortunate he never got to see the movie.
I can't top that. That's great. Yeah. I'm going to also give it to Martin Sherwin. I will say I did not enjoy reading this book, but I am glad that I have the knowledge I have after reading this book.
Yeah.
You're right. It's very important. It's something to know. It's something we didn't learn about in history. And we kind of touch on McCarthyism a little bit. And obviously you touch on World War II. And, as a man in your 30s and 40s, one of the hobbies you have to pick up is World War II or cars. And I chose World War II. So this is good to know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, but yeah, me not enjoying reading it does not mean I can't appreciate how much work went into writing it. And it is a well-written book.
Yeah.
It's dense. It's very dense.
Yeah. Who won the movie for you?
It's, cinephiles, boomers that like going to movies like you. Those are some good options. I think just IP sequels, those won. I don't want to say indie films because this is definitely a major studio production, but just getting away from what has been cinema the last 5 years, I thought that was a win too.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I mean, and I feel the same. I mean, I also enjoy sequels and IP. I love all that, so it's no slight at what has been popular because I love those things too, but Absolutely. It was nice for this to feel fresh. I would say if I had to settle on one thing, I would say the sort of monoculture was the winner. It was just, we talked about this at the very start, our own double helix in the podcast, the pure excitement of people wanting to go to the movies and talk about the same thing. Yep. It's just not something we get all the time anymore because there's just so much to watch, so much to read. There's so much going on that we're bombarded with every day that it's really fun when something captures everyone's attention. And I thought that was cool. Some half-ass internet research, favorite IMDb trivia. Matt Damon was on break from acting as a promise to his wife with one condition. It would go on hold if Christopher Nolan called. You said this at the start. It's almost like Nolan can call up people. And as luck would have it, Nolan called and offered Damon the role of Leslie Groves, and the break went on hold. The line by Harry Truman, amazing bit role by Gary Oldman, by the way. Don't you ever bring that crybaby back here ever again is historically factual. And Truman did really say this to his staff after the meeting. And he also mockingly did the handkerchief to him. Not a good look for Truman in this movie.
No.
Not at all. On December 16th, 2022, Robert Oppenheimer's security clearance was posthumously reinstated by the U.S. Department of Energy, almost 70 years after it was revoked by its predecessor, the AEC, the Atomic Energy Commission. Speaking to the New York Times, Kai Bird had reflected on the AEC's famously flawed security hearing, the push from the scientific community to restore Oppenheimer's clearance, and the Energy Department's decision saying, "I'm overwhelmed with emotion. History matters, and what was done to Oppenheimer in 1954 was a travesty, a black mark on the honor of the nation. Students of American history will now be able to read the last chapter and see what was done to Oppenheimer in that kangaroo court proceeding was not the last word," end quote. And I think this is something important here, that what was done by so many of those people and by Strauss it's a hollow victory because they're gone and we'll not know. But it's nice that things like this can come to light and we can look back fondly in some ways on Oppenheimer and see the true villainy that was perpetrated by someone like Strauss, ultimately for his own power and gain and feeling embarrassed at what Oppenheimer said about him. I got nothing else. Nick, people are dying to know. Do you recommend that people read this book?
Now, I know it's been hard to tell based on how I've reacted so far for the last hour and a half, but unless you are genuinely very interested in Oppenheimer, the role communism played in the late 30s leading into the war effort, and then, obviously the creation of the atomic bomb, you can probably get what you want out of the movie. If you are, in fact, super interested in that, maybe check out the book.
Yeah. I think if you like history, if you're interested in reading more in depth about the trials at the end,
if you miss going to school,
give it a go. Yeah. I mean, the movie, absolutely, this is a must watch. I think if you even have a passing interest in movies, you got to watch it. The adaptation is incredible. I think way better than the book. So 100% good maybe? Adaptation. Yeah. 9 out of 10 movie for me. Book probably sitting at a 6 out of 10.
Where are you putting this on the list though, Randy? I mean, right now, top 5: The Last of Us, Jurassic Park, Dune, Killers of the Flower Moon, The Shining. Where's it hit on your list as an adaptation?
This is tough for me. This is falling in the middle top. I will say this. To me, it is not above The Last of Us and Jurassic Park. But I think it might be the 3 slot above Dune, because as an adaptation, this is an improvement, a complete enhancement, over the source material. So I would put it at number 3. What would you say?
I actually had the same logic that as an adaptation, this made it better, and it made it more accessible. It made it more entertaining, and because our ranking is based on how good the adaptation is, I have to put it at number 1 because Jurassic Park, the book was excellent. The movie was excellent.
Yeah.
The Last of Us, the game was excellent. The show was excellent. They were both excellent adaptations, but I don't know that I might put it tied or below The Last of Us because I do think The Last of Us added to that world, which made that better. So you could make that argument. I don't know that I feel the Jurassic Park adaptation built on the book and made it better. I think it was just excellent. Yeah. And so there, I got to go 1, maybe 2. I could see that going either way. Now, what I enjoyed most and what is like, in my heart, like my favorite, I'm completely ignoring that and trying to look at it just from the lens of this is an adaptation. This is a podcast about adaptations. How good is this adaptation?
Yeah. It's tough, as I think Jurassic Park is one of the most important adaptations in history. And I don't think, maybe in time I'll feel that way about Oppenheimer. How are we gonna settle this?
Rock, paper, scissors?
Yeah, this is the first stalemate we have on the rankings. Cool. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. As we mentioned at the top, next episode we'll be covering The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, the Hunger Games prequel. We both like Hunger Games. We both... I can't remember. You haven't seen the movie yet, right? You just finished the book?
I finished the book, and I'm going to go see the movie when I get back from... I'm actually going to the Sugar Bowl. So nice. We're going to go see Texas and Washington play in New Orleans. But when I get back from that, I'm going to go see the movie right away.
Nice. I know nothing about college football, and when you said I'm going to the Sugar Bowl, I thought that was like a famous movie theater. I was like, I haven't heard of the Sugar Bowl before. If you have thoughts or questions and want to share them, like we said, please reach out to us on Instagram, Read Watch Play Podcast, or at Gmail, readwatchplaypod@gmail.com. As always, if you have suggestions for future stories, you can write to us there. Find us on all your major platforms, Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. Please rate and review, 5 stars only, and hit the follow or subscribe button, as those things help more people follow the show. And then we just end up rating your feed. Thanks to everyone for listening. Thanks to Nick for getting through that book and joining me here to talk about it. Till next time, everybody.